Wyoming Territory, 1889. The fire took less than an hour to destroy what had taken Mei Lin Zhao nearly 2 years to build. By sunrise, her laundry was a blackened shell. Smoke drifted above Silver Creek's main street while townspeople picked through wet ash and broken timber. Mei stood across from the ruins with soot on her face, her hands wrapped tightly around the handle of an iron she had pulled from the debris. The iron was warped from the heat. Almost everything else was gone. Her wash tubs, coal stove, drying lines, customer records, her savings. The wooden sewing box that had belonged to her mother was burned along one side. Worst of all, dozens of garments entrusted to her had disappeared in the flames. Mei stared at the wreckage. A merchant beside her shook his head. "You could go back to San Francisco." Mei didn't answer. He wasn't trying to be cruel. In his mind, he was offering practical advice. But San Francisco was behind her. Silver Creek was where she had chosen to begin again. And Mei Lin Zhao had already crossed an ocean once. She wasn't interested in retreating because of one burned building. Mei had arrived in America from China less than 2 years earlier. Her first months were spent in San Francisco's Chinatown, where she worked in a crowded laundry from before sunrise until late evening. The work was exhausting, but Mei paid attention. She learned that wool could not be treated like cotton. She learned how to remove grease without destroying fabric, how to repair cuffs before a tear spread, and how to stretch soap and coal when money was scarce. More importantly, she learned how immigrant businesses survived. One shop sent customers to another. A cook traded meals for deliveries. A seamstress repaired clothing for the laundress. A wagon driver carried parcels because someone had once helped his brother find work. Nobody had much. So people learned how to make what little they had circulate. When Mei heard that railroad construction was pushing deeper into Wyoming and creating new towns, she saw an opportunity. Silver Creek had ranches, railroad crews, mining traffic, boarding houses, and a remarkable number of men who seemed to believe. Washing a shirt meant throwing it into cold water and hoping for the best. Mei rented a narrow storefront. The front room became her counter. The rear held 3 wooden tubs, an ironing table, a coal stove, and drying lines. At first, business was painfully slow. Some townspeople didn't trust her. Others assumed laundry was something they could do themselves. Then a blacksmith brought her 2 shirts. Mei returned them clean, neatly pressed, with 3 loose buttons repaired at no additional charge. He came back. A ranch hand followed. Then a hotel cook. 6 months later, Mei had enough work to hire Anna Kowalski, a young Polish immigrant, for several hours each week. For the first time since leaving China, Mei owned something that felt permanent. Then, on an October night, the bakery next door caught fire. A damaged stovepipe sent sparks into the roof. Wind did the rest. Mei woke to bells and shouting. By the time she reached the street, flames were already crawling across her building. Men formed a bucket line. Among them was Caleb Morgan. Caleb was a cattle rancher in his mid-30s who lived several miles outside town. Mei knew him mostly as the man who brought in shirts with an unreasonable amount of mud on them. She tried to reach the laundry entrance. Caleb stepped in front of her. "My sewing box. Anyone inside?" "No." "Then stay here." "My accounts, Mei." She looked at him. Caleb didn't grab her. He didn't order anyone to restrain her. He simply stood between her and a roof that was beginning to buckle. "Nothing in there is worth you." Seconds later, part of the ceiling collapsed. Mei said nothing else. She watched until there was nothing left to save. By the following afternoon, she had calculated the damage. The answer was worse than she expected. She didn't merely need money to reopen. She owed customers for garments destroyed while under her care. Someone suggested collecting donations. Mei refused. Another offered to speak with the church. No. You've lost everything. Mei looked at him. I need work. That evening she rented a tiny room behind Mrs. Bennet's boarding house. She placed her damaged sewing box beside the bed. The burned iron sat on the floor. $2 and some coins remained in her purse. She slept badly. 3 mornings later, a wagon stopped outside. Mei heard Caleb's voice. She stepped onto the porch. Then stopped. His wagon was overflowing with dirty clothing. Shirts. Trousers. Blankets. Coats. Saddlecloths. There was so much laundry that one sleeve dragged over the side. Mei stared at it. Then at Caleb. What is this? Laundry. All yours? Caleb looked offended. Do you think I own 40 shirts? Mei considered his usual appearance. Maybe. He almost smiled. No. Not mine. Whose? Town's. Mei frowned. Caleb climbed down. I stopped at the livery. Then the blacksmith. General store. Boarding house. Railroad depot. Couple ranches. You asked everyone. Not everyone. A pause. Most everyone. Why? Caleb looked at her as though the answer were obvious. You said you needed work. Mei stared at the wagon again. It was not money. It was not charity. Every bundle belonged to a customer expecting a service and prepared to pay for it. For the first time since the fire, something inside her loosened. Then reality returned. I have no laundry. Caleb nodded. I've got an old wash house. Mei's eyes narrowed. At ranch? Behind the bunkhouse. Has a stove. Water pump. Needs cleaning. Rent? You just lost your building. Rent? Caleb recognized the tone. He scratched his beard. One repaired winter coat a month. Mei stared. Bad business. For me. For me. 2 coats. Mei considered. 1 coat and 2 shirts. Caleb extended his hand. Deal. Mei looked at it. Then shook it. Caleb's wash house hadn't been used properly in years. By the end of Mei's first day there, it barely resembled the same place. She scrubbed the tables. Repaired the drying lines. Positioned 3 tubs in sequence. Caleb watched her mark each station. What are those for? First wash. Rinse. Second rinse. 3 tubs for 1 shirt. Your shirts need 4. Caleb looked down at himself. Mei kept working. Within a week, she had transformed the wash house into an efficient operation. She separated wool from cotton. Pre-treated grease. Reused appropriate rinse water for floors and equipment instead of wasting fresh water. Buttons were checked before garments were returned. Small tears were repaired before they became large ones. Caleb began carrying bundles into town twice a week. Customers multiplied. Anna returned to work. Mei paid her before paying herself. One afternoon Caleb found Mei preparing a mixture for heavily stained work trousers. Where'd you learn all this? San Francisco. Big place? Very. I mean the laundry. Mei smiled slightly. Small place. Very many clothes. She told him about Chinatown. Not the exaggerated stories Caleb had heard from travelers, but the ordinary reality. Families sharing rooms above shops. Women sewing after midnight. Cooks feeding men who worked 12-hour days. Businesses surviving because people sent customers to one another. Caleb listened. So that's what you're doing here. What? Building the same kind of network. Mei shook her head. Not same. No. She looked through the open door toward Wyoming grassland stretching beyond his corrals. Different place. Then she smiled. Same idea. Winter brought the railroad. A maintenance foreman named Harris arrived with 2 coats Caleb had delivered. Who cleaned these? Caleb pointed toward Mei. Harris approached her. He supervised nearly 40 men. They needed blankets washed regularly, work clothing cleaned, and damaged coats repaired. Could she handle it? Mei did not answer immediately. She calculated. Water. Coal. Soap. Labor. Transportation. Then she said, not alone. Instead of rejecting the contract, she expanded. Anna became full-time. Mei hired Rosa Martinez, a Mexican widow who could iron faster than anyone she had met. Sarah Bennett joined them for mending. Mei established clear wages. Hours worked. Money paid. No mysterious deductions. No invented debt. Anyone could leave. Caleb noticed. You don't keep much for yourself. Business grows first. You're the business. No. Mei looked toward the 3 women working inside. We are business. That answer stayed with him. By January, Mei could afford rent. She placed money on Caleb's kitchen table. He pushed it back. She returned it. I thought we had an agreement. Agreement was coats and shirts. Old agreement. Still works. No. She placed the money closer to him. Real business. Caleb understood what she meant. As long as she used his building for almost nothing, part of what she built depended on his generosity. Mei wanted partnership. Not dependence. Caleb took the money. All right. Mei nodded. Good. You know, most people say thank you. I wash your shirts. That's not the same thing. It should be. Caleb laughed. Their relationship changed slowly. No dramatic confession. No sudden promise. He learned not to help unless she asked. She learned that accepting help didn't automatically create a debt. Sometimes Caleb drove laundry. Sometimes Mei repaired ranch blankets. Sometimes they ate dinner together because neither had a convincing reason not to. Trust accumulated in ordinary moments. Then Silver Creek began running out of water. A brutal cold snap froze several shallow wells. The town council imposed restrictions. Someone immediately pointed toward Mei's laundry. Clean shirts aren't worth drinking water, a merchant said. Mei surprised everyone. He is right. The room went quiet. Then she placed a sheet of paper on the table. But laundry does not need drinking water for every job. She proposed reducing operations to 2 full wash days per week. Clean well water would be protected for drinking, cooking, and final rinses. Collected snowmelt could handle selected washing tasks where appropriate. Reusable water would clean floors and equipment rather than being discarded immediately. Caleb helped install covered barrels and gutters. Others copied the system. Within days, the laundry was consuming far less fresh water. The railroad still received essential blankets and winter workwear. The town preserved its drinking supply. The same merchant who had questioned Mei's business arrived a week later carrying a coat. He placed it on the counter. Mei accepted it. Neither mentioned the meeting. She didn't need an apology to know something had changed. By spring, Mei's business was healthier than ever. Caleb's ranch was not. A cattle buyer broke a major agreement. Feed prices rose. Caleb started skipping deliveries to Silver Creek. Because he couldn't spare the time or fuel. Mei noticed. Problem? No. Caleb. Small problem. How small? He looked away. Fairly large. Eventually he showed her the accounts. Caleb planned to sell part of his herd. Mei went home and opened her own books. 2 days later, she returned with a contract. Caleb read it. Then read it again. What is this? Transportation. Her laundry now served railroad camps, ranches, and settlements beyond Silver Creek. She needed regular wagon service. Storage. Horses. A dependable driver. Caleb possessed all 4. He looked at her. You're trying to save my ranch. No. Mei. She tapped the figures. I need transportation. You could hire someone cheaper. Yes. Then why me? Cheaper is not reliable. Caleb studied her. Mei leaned against the table. You brought me customers. Her finger tapped the contract. Now I bring you business. Caleb slowly smiled. So we're even? No. Why not? You still owe for shirts. He signed. The transportation agreement worked. Caleb's wagons began carrying clean laundry outward and dirty bundles back towards Silver Creek. On return trips he transported supplies for merchants. The extra income stabilized his ranch. Mei, meanwhile, moved back into town. She rented a larger storefront with a proper laundry behind it and a mending counter in front. The blackened iron from the first fire remained in a box. She never threw it away. Then, almost exactly a year after losing her first shop, the fire bell rang again. For one terrible instant, Mei couldn't move. Orange light flickered beyond the railroad depot. A warehouse was burning. Wind pushed sparks toward the business district. Caleb arrived with his wagon. Mei. That broke the spell. She looked around her laundry. Water barrels. Heavy blankets. Large sheets. Wagons. Workers. A year earlier, fire had found her unprepared. Not tonight. Rosa, Anna, wet blankets. They moved. Sarah, barrels outside. Caleb looked at her. Wagon? Water. He nodded and ran. Mei organized the rest. Wet blankets were placed over vulnerable wooden surfaces where safe to do so. Townspeople formed bucket lines. Caleb's wagon moved water where it was needed. Railroad workers joined the effort. No one entered unstable burning structures. They protected what could safely be protected and left the flames themselves to the organized firefighting effort. Hours later, the fire stopped 2 buildings short of Mei's shop. She stood in the street, exhausted. Water ran beneath her boots. Caleb approached. Still here. Mei looked at the laundry. Still here. The following morning, Caleb brought something into her shop. He placed it on the counter. The burned iron. Mei stared. He had mounted it on a simple wooden base. He hadn't polished away the damage. The blackened surface remained. Why? Caleb shrugged. Thought you should keep it. It is useless. Not everything has to be useful. Mei touched the iron. First fire took everything. Caleb shook his head. Not everything. I had $2. And that. A burned iron. Your hands. Mei looked at him. Your knowledge. Your stubbornness. Your ability to make 40 people believe clean trousers were suddenly an emergency. She laughed. 47 now. Exactly. Mei became quiet. I thought when I came to America, if I worked enough, I would never need anyone. Caleb waited. I was wrong. About the work? No. She stepped closer. About needing people. He didn't reach for her. Mei appreciated that. So she reached first. Her fingers found his. You know why I stayed in Silver Creek? Railroad contract? No. Excellent water supply? She gave him a look. Definitely not. Caleb smiled. Mei's expression softened. This became home. She squeezed his hand. And you are part of it. Caleb's smile disappeared into something quieter. That's enough for me. For the moment, it was enough for her too. 2 years later, Mei's laundry occupied most of the building. Caleb's transportation service operated alongside his ranch. Their businesses supported one another without becoming the same business. Their lives worked much the same way. One spring morning, a train arrived from the west. A young Chinese woman stepped into Mei's shop carrying a worn suitcase and a sewing basket. She spoke little English. When Mei answered her in Chinese, relief crossed the woman's face. Do you need workers? She asked. Mei didn't answer immediately. What can you do? The woman opened the basket. Inside were pieces of delicate embroidery. Mei examined the stitches carefully. Excellent work. How much do you charge? The young woman looked embarrassed. I don't know. Mei remembered being new to America. Not knowing prices. Not knowing who could be trusted. Not knowing whether kindness would become obligation. She closed the basket. Then first, Mei said, we learn what your work is worth. The woman's eyes lifted. Mei showed her the mending tables. Explained the wages. The hours. Payment every week. And one final condition. If you don't like the work, you leave. The woman looked confused. No debt. No debt. A wagon rattled outside. Caleb. The back was piled absurdly high with dirty laundry. Mei stepped into the doorway. Again. Railroad camp. How many? 47 bundles. Mei closed her eyes. Caleb grinned. Want me to take them somewhere else? She opened her eyes. Bring them in. The young seamstress watched workers unload the wagon. Is that how your business started? She asked. Mei looked toward the shelf behind her. The burned iron sat there. Its surface was still scarred from the night she thought her future had disappeared in the flames. Almost, Mei said. She had once believed success meant reaching a point where the past could no longer touch her. Now she understood that wasn't the point. The fire had taken her tubs. Her stove. Her savings. Her shop. It had not taken what she knew. It had not taken her judgment. It had not taken her dignity. And it had never possessed the right to decide what she would become next. Caleb hadn't rebuilt her life. He hadn't handed her money and called it salvation. He had simply listened when she said she needed work. Then he had arrived with a wagon full of dirty clothes. Mei had done the rest. Years later, when other immigrant women stepped off trains in Silver Creek carrying everything they owned in a suitcase, Mei didn't promise them an easy future. She offered something she understood was far more valuable. Honest work. Fair pay. A place to begin. And the freedom to decide where that beginning might lead. Outside, Caleb lifted another bundle from the wagon. Mei. What? This one's mine. She looked at the shirt in his hands. There wasn't a stain on it. Mei narrowed her eyes. Caleb. Could be dirty. It is clean. Dust might settle on it. She shook her head. You came for dinner? He smiled. Maybe. Mei pointed toward the door. Then say dinner. Caleb laughed. Dinner. Mei smiled. Better. And while Silver Creek carried on around them, another train whistle sounded somewhere beyond the prairie. This time, when newcomers stepped onto the platform searching for a place in an unfamiliar country, there was already a door in town that might open for them.